Hey folks, welcome back. We have something a little bit fun for this evening. I'm actually going to do a small video, trying to keep this one as short as possible, going through the different scuba gear that recreational divers would normally need to acquire. Also, I'll try to do it in the order in which I think is best for purchasing and acquiring the gear. Some people would disagree with the order that I select, but that doesn't mean that their method is wrong and mine is right, or vice versa. Different, scenarios, different conditions may call for slightly different order in acquiring the equipment. So, if you're joining me for the first time, don't forget to leave a like. Feel free to subscribe. I will be trying to put out more content on a more regular basis. And feel free to leave a comment at the end of the video if you have any questions and so on. So without further ado, let's go. Alright, so the first piece of gear that I think all divers should purchase when they're about to start their open water diver certification, like I mean before they even, as soon as they sign up for the class, before they're certified, I think that divers should purchase their very own mask. Now, to talk real quickly about the mask, there are several different brands you can get. Mine is Aqualung. Masks normally have either one piece of glass there, sometimes they would have two. They would have a piece of silicone here that will be nice and soft that press against the face. Some will have a frame here, some will not have the frame. Some will be clear, some will be black or maybe like a solid color. The different people would have different preferences in terms of what they prefer for their face in terms of clear versus dark and so on. I prefer the clear ones right now. I may change my mind later on, but this is what I went with. Most important thing with a mask is make sure that it fits you. The brand is not as important as the fit. Make sure it fits you and you're comfortable with it. Once you have a mask that fits properly, you're going to be perfectly fine. Now, next up, and I'm putting this next, but not everyone will put this next, a snorkel. Now, the snorkel that I am using here, this is the Nautilus from Aqualung, and this is actually a travel snorkel. So it's really compact. It's designed to not be very obtrusive, obstructive, when you're diving. Some divers tend to feel that having the snorkel attached to the mask there while they're in the water affects the range of motion, which could become a safety issue for some people, right? So the Nautilus was designed to be tucked away. So this could be in the pocket of the BCD or clipped on in some capacity. And it's, you just take it out and that's it. You have your snorkel. That's it really. Snorkels are pretty straightforward. Put them in your mouth, this part goes above, and you breathe. Some of them, may have some additional features, like you have dry snorkels and some have purge valves and so on. Dry snorkels aren't 100% dry. There's always the possibility that water could get back in. There are some that have a bit of a splash guard here at the top, where if a little wave hits or something, water less likely to go down in. But generally speaking, you always have some level of risk that while you're using your snorkel at the surface there, that some water could get in. So you still need to be careful and very aware of your surroundings. The next piece of equipment I'm going to put in is going to be, I'm going to mention some exposure coverage. Now, for that, I'm using as an example a rash guard. I'm just showing the rash guard for now. My wetsuit is stored away and I didn't have time to take it out. I should have taken it out before. Maybe I'll take it out later in the video. But exposure protection is pretty important. Based on the temperature of the water that you're diving in, some people would say a rash guard is suitable with a pair of swim trunks. Sometimes you could get neoprene swim trunks. Generally speaking, I think a full wetsuit is a better option. Reason being, it gives you proper protection all across your body. You never know if you might get accidentally cut by a stone, a coral, or maybe some other life form beneath the water. It's just to be careful. Most of the things in the water don't want to hurt us, but they could hurt us. So we still need to be very mindful of that. So exposure protection. And it's not just the rash guard or the wetsuit. there are other things we need to consider when it comes to exposure protection. And those other things that we need to consider when it comes to exposure protection are gloves and dive socks or booties, depending on the type of fins you're going to be using and so on. And I'll get into that in a short while. But basically, while you're underwater, you want to be careful. The temperature is going to be kind of cold the deeper you go naturally. So if it is you're accustomed to diving in water, you live in an area where the temperature is on average 30 to 33 degrees Celsius. Yeah, we don't do Fahrenheit in this country, I'm sorry. I will put the conversion though. If it is you're diving somewhere that's that temperature, you have to keep in mind that as you go deeper into the water, it's going to get colder. So as a result of that, you have to keep in mind that all the extremities that are exposed are, likely to start feeling cold. So you need proper gloves and either booties or a dive sock, which depends on the type of fin that you're wearing. Now, another way that some people would lose heat, in fact, most of the heat that is lost in the body is from the head. So some people would recommend wearing a dive hood. I don't have a problem in terms of the temperature from my dives that I have done so far, but there's always a possibility that I may dive in different waters later on and I will need a dive hood. And at that point, I'll purchase one. For now, I don't need it. Now, we spoke about the dive sock and the bootie just now. So the next piece of gear we're gonna go to, and this is something that I don't think you should purchase until you've started to do some sessions in the water, in the open water, like not just the pool sessions. And that's your fins. I went with this particular fin. It's called the Aqualung Storm. It's a very light travel friendly fin. It can be worn with or without anything on your feet, any type of exposure protection. You could wear it bare feet if you want, or you could use the dive socks. So, you have the option. The reason I say don't buy this until you spend some time in the water diving, maybe after you get certified, is because you want to make sure that you're comfortable with the type of fin that you're going to be using, and also you're gonna need to remember that there's going to be different water conditions, and you might see something online that looks good on the internet. Don't buy it right away just because it looks cool. That's not a good idea. So what I would recommend is take the advice of your instructor, visit a local dive shop, and let them advise you onto the type of fin that they think might be best for you, but also you think about your strengths and your weaknesses when it comes to swimming, because once you're using your legs properly and you have proper fins, you should never need to move your arms when you're in the water at all. That you should be fine with that. So next up, we're gonna go with an often overlooked piece of equipment, and that's our DSMB. So this is basically the DSMB is a surface marker buoy, or buoy. Well, we can argue that later on. But basically, what you do is you unravel this and you inflate it, and this one is about 4 feet long, and this goes up. And you could inflate this orally or with your regulator, with the but I think orally is the best. And once you inflate it and you attach to it, you can't just inflate it and let it go up because it might drift off, right? So when you inflate it, you should have already had it connected to this. This is your reel. And using a bolt snap, you would connect this you can connect this either to your BCD, or you can have it on your hand, but this needs to be connected to the SMB to ensure that you don't lose it. I have a bolt snap here. This is what we would normally use. Divers use a lot of bolt snaps. Alright, now in terms of, this is a safety device, by the way. You send this up so that this ascends before you go up. So that way, if there are any boats in the area, other divers, people snorkeling and so on, they will see this there and they would know that a diver is coming up and is about to surface. So as you make your careful and slow ascent, by the time you reach up, anybody who was in the area should have moved away, so it should be safe. Next up in terms of safety equipment is this here. It's a reflective, it's basically a signal mirror. That's what it is. Sometimes after you surface, you may be a little distance away from the boat that you went down with. So you can use this to signal them based on the angle you get. Pretty important piece of equipment. All right, so those things you get like as soon as you finish. As soon as you start, get the mask. I would say get the snorkel early on as well. Get the wetsuit or the rash guard, whichever you're using. I would say go with the wetsuit while you're doing the course, so you're in your own wetsuit the entire time, because it's kind of personal, it's always on you, it's on your skin, it's touchy, like even the mask, it's on your face. You want to make sure that it's you alone using it, right? And you're not using any rental equipment for things like that. I mean, there are places you could get good rental equipment, but given what's happening in the world right now, I think we need to pay attention to how clean certain things are. Maybe you might need to ease up on some of the rental stuff for now. Now we're going to go into some more equipment. All right, so we're going to talk about some more equipment now, right? And I have here a tank that's connected to a BCD and a regulator. Just adjust that a little bit there. There we go. So this tank is pretty important piece of equipment. This holds our oxygen, or the gas that the gas mix that we'll be using going down and breathing underwater. The regulator first stage is connected right over here. Now the regulator, pretty important piece of gear, and I think it's the first of the expensive pieces of gear that you should purchase once you've been certified. Now the regulator, basically it connects to the tank. You have different types of regulators that have different features. We're not going to go into that now. I have other videos that would address that. The regulator is in a few parts. So the regulator has a second stage, which is what we breathe through, connected to it, and it also has an alternate second stage. And the alternate is to be shared with your dive buddy should they be in a position where they're in some level of distress while diving. You really shouldn't be diving alone. It's nothing wrong with being self-reliant, but being solo is not the best practice. It's good to, it's recommended that you dive with a buddy. Some people might train to not do that, but it's still best to dive with someone, so you always have a backup. Also connected to the regulator, we have a low pressure inflator hose, and that's connected to the BCD, and this way we could inflate the BCD and deflate the BCD when we need to. And another thing connected to it is our gauge set. This can hold 3 different pieces. I have the depth gauge and the PSI gauge. So I know how deep I am at any point, and I also know how much air I have left. Like for example, with this particular tank, it's currently filled to 3000 PSI. Like if I were to put it on, we'll see it go up to that level. Some tanks can handle more. To the back, we have this blank area here. It's actually a slate, so I could write little notes for people, but this is a pretty small space to put notes, right? So my plan is to remove this and add a compass. I've already ordered the compass, but I don't have it as yet. So, we'll just leave that out for now. Important thing with this gauge set is it's totally analog. So it's not dependent on having any batteries. This full regulator set, it will cost you some money. They're not cheap, to be totally honest. This gauge alone is in the vicinity of 200 US. The octo probably between like 175, 200 US. That's the alternate. We call it the octo. The first and second stage, that's probably in the vicinity of, you can get some for like around 300 US, but generally, like the one I have is closer to 5. And some go up even higher, like 800 US, sometimes over 1,000, and some cases maybe even 2,000. But I'm not into those right now. But this is one of the most expensive pieces of gear you will purchase. Some of them will have like additional stuff attached to them, like transmitters and so on. But we're not going to get into that now. Now, connecting to the tank as well as the regulator is the BCD. And the BCD is also known as the buoyancy compensation device. So I'm just gonna move this a little bit here so you can see it. It's basically like a jacket style wrap that you put on. It hugs the body nice and securely, nice and snug, and it can be inflated with air from your tank, or it can be inflated orally. You have options, and it's important because that helps you maintain your buoyancy. At the end of a dive, you might be kind of tired, and you might be a little bit stressed out, overexerted after overexerting yourself, and at that point, the BCD is what's going to keep you afloat. Of course, just kicking with your fins will help as well, but like I said, you might be exerting. So the BCD is pretty important for keeping you safe, connecting to the other equipment, and also it will have pockets where you can put in your weights. So I don't have the weights here for this BCD, but the weights would plug in. Some of them have integrated weight pockets. This one does, and some people may also use a weight belt in addition to the integrated weight pockets. Small fact, based on the kind of tank that you have, if you're using a steel tank instead of an aluminum tank, it will affect your buoyancy, and the amount of weights that you use with one would vary with the other, because steel-based tanks tend to weigh a little bit more, and they don't have the same buoyancy as the aluminum tank. But I'm not going to get into too much details on these things, because I think as you get into the course itself, I think people would get to know all that information from the instructor, and that's the best place to get that information. So yeah, all our equipment, like for example, the DSMB, the safest marker buoy, that's attached to the BCD. Sometimes you'll have a rattle, or we call it a noisemaker. That will be attached to the BCD as well, or in one of the pockets. If you have your knife, and your knife could be attached, there are spaces, there are little grommets on the BCD where you can see it there. Hold one moment. Yeah, so there's these little two areas here where you can attach a holster for a knife. Some people would also strap it to their leg and so on. In different places you can apply it, or attach it, sorry. And that's it for the BCD. Now, the last piece of equipment that I don't have right now, I'm just gonna tell you about while I show a small video here unboxing it, right? So basically that last piece of equipment is our dive computer. Now the dive computer that I went with is the Aqualung i200C, and this is something that calculates how much time you'd have spent underwater versus your depth, and it helps figure out when you will need to start your ascent, when you would need to do your safety stop before coming up, and things like that. You know, it does all the calculations for you, so you don't have to do the maths. And I've already purchased mine. I just didn't receive it as yet. It's on the way. So, you know, but I have this little video here that would have shown a bit about the unboxing. So that's it for me. I just wanted to share some of these things. I hope you all enjoyed. Keep good and stay safe out there. And don't forget to leave a comment in the section there. Ask any questions you have, and we'll talk later. Bye.